Well, sometimes a news story breaks that you just know you have to report on, so here goes. You may have... No. Just no. You may have heard that a couple of weeks ago there was an election in Germany, but now we're seeing headlines that the results are being contested. And we're not talking about supporters of a losing party crying, "Voter fraud!" Berlin's state returning officer is to take legal action. So this is something that is being taken seriously, but the good news is that it doesn't mean the entire election is about to be invalidated. In fact, it doesn't affect the main event at all. As sometimes happens, there was more than one election taking place. This is in fact a fairly sensible way of doing it. If more than one election is due at about the same time, just hold them all on the same day. It's pretty much a no-brainer. So in Berlin, people were voting not just for the federal election, but also in an election for the Berlin House of Representatives. It is basically Berlin's state parliament, the city of Berlin being a state in its own right. There were also elections for each of the 12 borough councils and a referendum. Unfortunately, in Berlin, the election was chaotic. It was badly organized and long queues formed outside some of the polling stations. It seems that some polling stations ran out of ballot papers and some had the wrong ballot papers delivered, and just in general there were communication problems. Many polling stations opened longer than required just to make sure that everybody who wanted to could vote. Some news outlets reported other irregularities as well, although these have not been officially confirmed. For example, in Berlin, all EU citizens aged 16 or over were eligible to vote in the local elections, but only German citizens aged 18 or over were eligible to vote in the federal election, and it's possible that some people were given the wrong set of ballot papers. This is incredibly embarrassing for the Berlin Senate, the government of Berlin, but it seems at least that it wasn't bad enough to make any difference to the federal election. However, the returning officer is worried about the results from two constituencies for the House of Representatives, specifically relating to the direct mandate vote. A quick recap for those not familiar with the voting system. Each constituency directly elects one representative on a first-past-the-post basis, but voters also get a second vote for a party list, which is used to add more representatives in order to achieve proportional representation. In these two constituencies, the margin between the winner and the runner-up is so narrow that the results might now actually be in doubt. Now, to be sure, this isn't going to massively change the makeup of the House of Representatives. The SPD is the clear winner with a 2.5-point lead over the Greens, and this isn't really going to make much of a difference to that. But it does mean that one or two representatives out of a total of 147 may have been elected when they shouldn't have been, one for the AfD and one for the SPD. If that is so, then some seats will need to be reallocated. So what happens next? Well, the returning officer has collected all the evidence and intends to present it to the Berlin Constitutional Court. If the court agrees with her, then it's likely that residents in those two constituencies will have to vote again. Not the whole of Berlin, just those two constituencies. All of which is a major headache and an embarrassment for the Senate. It is worth pointing out that there were in Berlin 2,257 polling stations, and problems were reported in 207 of them. But that is still nearly 10%, and what's worse is that there were also issues reported with the mail-in ballots. Not a great advert for Berlin, which in the past has tried to claim that it is poor but sexy. Okay, well, you know, I mean, if lack of organisational skills is what turns you on, who am I to judge? Don't forget that you can vote for this video by hitting the thumbs up button, and that's one thing the Berlin Senate can't mess up.